Okay, people, I want to use this video to stress a few points about my position on a number of issues, such as the concept of objectification, the feminist campaign I took issue with in my last few videos, and just basically a response to that. Now, please excuse me if talk a little bit slurred. There's a rather painful mouth also that I'm dealing with at the moment, so that's the reason. I wanted to make this video because there's been a number of girls, women, who have taken issue with the video I made. They're entitled to their opinion, and again I thank them for taking the time to reply and watch my video. But the wrong in what they're reading into it, what they seem to be reading into it, is that I am in denial that sexism against women exists. Now, I want to make it very clear. I fully acknowledge there is, unfortunately, still sexist attitudes around towards women in the media. Although, like I said in my last video, I don't like this term media, as I do believe it's too abstract. I stand by that. But where it does exist, there is sexism. I don't deny that. There is. There are occasionally certain egotistical men who do display misogynistic attitudes. They should be challenged, and their attitudes are wrong. I don't deny it. But I don't believe the problem is to such an extent that it warrants a sort of worldwide awareness campaign, that it warrants what ultimately I believe their goal is to censor and control the media. And let me explain this a little bit. I believe there are some very major women's rights issues in this world. In some parts of Africa, rape is used as a weapon of war. The DRC is a good, well, bad example of that. Thousands and thousands of women have been subjected to brutal war crimes in the form of gang rape. It's seen as a sort of victory for the opposite side and the sort of chaos that has enveloped that country over the last decade. Thousands and thousands of women have been victims of this. It's an abomination. It's a crime against humanity, and it's very real. It's no great mystery. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out the sort of abuses that take place against women in Afghanistan and Pakistan. The rape crisis that India is facing. There are many, many women's rights issues around the world. Female genital mutilation is a big issue. Domestic violence in some parts of the world is a very big issue. So I'm under no illusions as to the existence of women's rights issues. No illusions at all. And I've always supported methods and approaches to deal with that. And if you don't believe that, just have a look through my video history for other videos where I've spoken out in support of campaigns taking on those things. But I do stand by my critique of this particular campaign, because I believe that Western feminists, and from what I've seen, most of the people who are replying to me are American women or Western women, they've got the priorities wrong. This obsession, and that's what it is, about objectification of women in the media, is particularly what I'd like to talk about in this video. I made another video about it, but that was a while back. I think it's a massively overused term. Let me try and narrow down what I believe that they regard as objectification. They believe that women are used merely as sex objects to titillate men, and their bodies are used as a medium for entertainment. Now, it's certainly true that in the music industry, it's quite clear that sexuality has been increasingly used in a lot of modern pop videos. But what I resent is the feminist argument that men are to blame. Because what it comes down to is female artists are themselves choosing to do this. Now, it may be that they think men will be titillated by those videos, but in the end of the day, they are free-thinking artists who are making these choices. And I can cite many talented female artists who don't do that, who don't use such provocative videos in that way. Personally, it doesn't do much for me. And I would agree it probably is overused in the music industry, and it is probably true to say that it's much more women than men that who use their bodies in that way. But the point is, they are doing it themselves. No one's forcing them to do it. And this is what I really resent about the feminist position. If you listen to the sort of feminist arguments, they imply that this is a case of evil, perverted men forcing these poor, defenseless women to do these sort of sexual acts in their music videos. And the reality is quite different. The reality is the women themselves are choosing to do it. They're largely responsible for their own choreography. So how feminists can blame men for that is just beyond me. But in terms of objectification, I really do wonder to what extent feminists would like to see this taken on. Now, they argue that women are seen solely for their sexuality. What I would argue is, why should an adult woman, what right do you have to dictate to an adult woman what she should and shouldn't do with her body, in terms of her art or her the way she wants to choreograph a video or whatever? What right do feminists have to dictate to other women what they shouldn't and shouldn't do with their body? And what right do they have to dictate to men that men are not allowed to be attracted to that? And it comes back to my point that I believe there are definite totalitarian overtones of feminism. Someone made a good point in my video. He said it's a bit like some people want to see all video games banned because some video games have violence, that sort of logic. That because one group of people doesn't like something, then the whole thing should be, an entire industry should be affected. So in other words, feminists are saying that because we don't like it, the whole thing should change for us. That's a totalitarian mindset. And where are they going to draw the limit? I mean, do they want women to wear bags over their head? What irks me off is they're criminalizing sexuality like it's a terrible thing. And I guarantee you, there's a claim that often feminists make is that, oh, men see them as pieces of meat. I guarantee you, heterosexual men do not look at a sexually attractive girl or woman and see that as like some piece of pork or something. It's a stupid comparison. I actually think the look of meat is quite a ugly looking thing. It's bloody, it's not nice. A sexually attractive girl, I'm a heterosexual man, of course I'm going to be attracted. So that analogy is just strange, frankly. I don't really know where it came from, but it's a stupid analogy. But there's deeper issues here, which is that I honestly believe that feminists, it's part of their very arrogant attitude that they can dictate to everyone else what they should and shouldn't think. It's actually bordering on a sort of idea that they have a right to have thought control over others. Like, they have a right to tell men what they should and shouldn't be attracted to, and they have a right to tell other women that they shouldn't use their bodies in that way. Now, if you don't like it, don't watch it. Those women are not forcing you to do anything, and the men who get titillated by them are not hurting you personally. Now, I'm not naive. I know there are areas whereby body image is a major issue, especially for young women. I'm not ignorant to that, okay? I know that body image can cause all sorts of mental health problems for young women. It can cause eating disorders. It can cause massive damage to morale and so on. So I'm not ignorant to the problems brought about by that. But I don't think this whole campaign about objectification is just focusing on that. I believe it's going far beyond that. And that's why I take issue with it. Because it ultimately comes down to a sort of thought control. It comes down to dictating to heterosexual men what we should and shouldn't be attracted to. And if a man is attracted to a sexually alluring woman, then he's demonized as a pervert. That's what feminists do. And it's just... It frustrates me because I think it's unfair, but it also ignores human nature. Clearly, a heterosexual man is going to be attracted to a sexually attractive girl with a nice body. That's just human nature. And any heterosexual woman who would claim that she is not attracted to a good-looking man with a good body, frankly, I would say is lying. It's human nature. Okay? It's chemistry, it's biology. You cannot dictate on that sort of thing. You cannot force people to think in another way. And if there's a case where some men, you know, it's like the analogy or the thing the guy who commented on my video mentioned was that because some people play violent video games, then they go out and commit crimes. Why should the entire industry be impacted because those people are idiots? Likewise, because some men may look at those sort of music videos or pornography and then they become abusive towards women, why should all men be punished as a result? It's like the notion of collective punishment, and this is what ultimately this feminist campaign is about. It's about collective punishment. It's about vilifying an entire industry because some people respond negatively to that industry. And I think it's just absurd. The way I see it is that in any free society, people should have a right to do whatever the hell they want, so long as it doesn't directly hurt other people. That's the fundamental argument here, is about liberty. And what feminists are doing, frankly, is trying to deny liberty to others, the liberty of free choice. They're patronising other women by saying, oh, you're just using your body to titillate men, ignoring the fact that they are adult women who choose to do it, and they're dictating to men what men should and shouldn't like. And if men do look at that sort of stuff, then they're vilified as a pervert. Now, speaking for myself, I'm not that interested in that sort of stuff. I like elegance, I like beauty in other ways. But I don't believe I have a right to dictate to other men what they should and shouldn't be attracted to. Of course there's risky areas where some guys, they can't control themselves and they become rapists and so on. And that's obviously a serious issue. But again, that doesn't justify collective punishment. What I'm saying is, it's stupid to say, oh, let's ban all music videos that feature any sort of sexuality, because some guys are going to respond to that in a dangerous way. You know, I've seen those videos. I'm not going to go out and rape a woman. It really frustrates me. And I stand by everything I said in the last video. There's huge double standards here, because what they're saying is there is exclusive victimhood of women. Now, I'll just cite one example where there is blatant discrimination against men. How often is it you see in the news where there's been a major terrorist attack or a major accident or disaster that's almost inevitably followed up by women and children were among the fatalities? Now, as a man, I am distressed when women and children are victims, but that does not mean that we should see men as expendable. News outlets are responsible to some extent for promoting this idea. Feminists endorse it. Well, actually, feminists ignore it. They ignore that blatant sexism. And feminists have never really responded to this idea that men are expendable when it comes to tragedies. Because this sort of feminist agenda is basically about saying women are defenseless, trodden upon slaves of evil, perverted men. That is fundamentally what their argument comes down to. Female victimhood. And I think it's actually very patronising to women. You know, if I was a woman, I wouldn't always want to feel like a victim. I wouldn't always want to be pitied, because that's what feminists seem to be doing. What they seem to be saying is, oh, look at the terrible way in which poor women are treated by the media. Because there is sexism to be found in there, they then say, oh, well, it represents the entire industry. And that's just a massive distortion. So I do stand by everything I say in those videos, because I believe that this is a huge distortion. I'm not denying that sexism exists. Unfortunately, it does. And I did not deny it in my previous videos. Sexism does exist. But I'm so sick and tired of some Western feminists being complete control freaks over anyone that they don't agree with. No one is forcing them personally to strip down. And what right do they have to dictate to other women that they can't do that, or dictate to men? You know, as long as people are free-thinking adults, what right do you have to legislate against that, really? because it comes down to liberty. I'm not ignorant. I know there are situations where exploitation is involved, and those situations have to be differentiated from areas where there's free choice. But you cannot legislate on biological attraction. You just can't.